to the Build Business Acumen podcast, where we deliver practical knowledge and powerful guidance. Here is your futuristic host, Nathaniel Schooler.
In this expert talk, I'm interviewing Melissa Sassi from across the pond. She's actually an ex-Microsoftie turned IBMer who brings passion and purpose to the tech industry with her belief that digital literacy is a human right. Right, Mel, it's good to see you again. So you've been all over the shop. You're in Barcelona now. What you've been? You're like I don't know what the hell you're doing. You're all over the place. I feel tired just watching what you've been doing, and I'm in my studio here. So
it's both my blessing and my curse. So yeah, I'm talking to you from Soho House in Barcelona, and I will say that I do have a glass of wine in front of me. So if you see me partaking every once in a while, don't be surprised.
Well, I wouldn't worry. I just went down to the pound shop to buy some lightning cables for my phone, right? Because the last one stopped working, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I woke up on Monday morning, my iPhone's down to 25% battery, yeah. Got no cable, yeah. I'm so busy, I don't want to go out. And I was like, is my iPhone broken? Is it not? Is it the cable? So I was just freaking out. And I literally just went down there. And my friend Eric, he's got 20 cables. He's like, look, just buy.
It's the story of my life. It's the story of my life. Just like the reason why I got this great idea to replace my headphones that I lost on a plane a while back. And unfortunately, the microphone, it doesn't work if it's hanging normally. So I've come up with this spacecraft thing that allows me to still keep these headphones and not take them back and still use them. So that's why I kind of look like a spaceship pilot right now.
Well, I won't worry. I'm in my casuals today. You know, it's an office day. And so we're here to talk about really digital inclusion. Yeah. I know that's a massive topic, and you know more than anyone else that I know about about this topic. So tell me about it.
Yeah, so I've spent the last few days on what I would say some really interesting, participating in some really interesting talk tracks. So I'm here in Barcelona, and I led a talk yesterday, so on Monday, on what is digital inclusion. So I spent the last 2 years working on a literature review. So I know that's quite an academic term, but I've essentially combed the internet and combed journals, academic journals on the definition of digital skills, the definition of digital intelligence, of life skills, and trying to figure out, what is the definition of digital literacy, and if there is a common definition. If you think about it and you go out to any dictionary, you go to UNESCO, you're going to find a common definition of literacy. And we know what that is. We measure it, we track it. But if you think about it, there isn't one for digital literacy. There are many. UNESCO, as a matter of fact, has 2 that they've adopted, whereas literacy has 1. And if you think about it, how do you measure progress against something if you can't define it and you don't have a commonly agreed framework? In terms of frameworks, even UNESCO has a couple. There are many organizations out there that follow a multitude of different frameworks for digital skills. And what I mean by that is, think about it as a competency wheel, or a series of competencies, from basic digital literacy, such as managing your online footprint, media literacy, think about it as internet safety or privacy, all the way through to more advanced applications of digital skills, such as computational thinking or problem solving or productivity tools, whether that's using Microsoft Office or Google products or any other products that help you be more productive, either in the classroom or as a teacher or as a professional, all the way through to building mobile applications or IoT. And the reason I say this is, if you think about the Sustainable Development Goals, so the UN put forth 17 global goals, and the idea is solve all of that, and we are essentially alleviating the wickedest problems in the world, such as extreme poverty or hunger or gender inclusion, quality education, infrastructure, all of that kind of stuff. Why does this matter? 50% of the world is not online, and it proportionally or it exponentially impacts women and girls, indigenous communities, people with accessibility needs. And how can we measure progress if we can't define something?
50%. It's a big number, isn't it?
It's a huge
So
number.
yeah, it's huge. It's huge. So I know you're involved with a charity that's doing a lot within schools. So that's within Africa, right?
So I have my own nonprofit that I fund with my salary. It's called Mentor Nations. We teach young people, and it's all youth led and student led. So it's not just about me or someone like me teaching digital skills. It's taking young engineers or young computer scientists who are still in university, sharing their skills forward. We have teams of people in North Africa, so in Tunisia, in Bangladesh, and also in Pakistan. So it goes beyond Africa. I've got other people in other parts of the world, but the idea is, how do you empower young people through technology to become entrepreneurs and to start their own companies by having skills in mobile application development or just basic digital literacy. I'm also involved in a Pakistani nonprofit that uses these Raspberry Pi like devices. We cache content and we teach out of school kids. So imagine you've got 125 or so million kids outside of the school system, and imagine empowering those kids by working within the confines of culture and enabling them to learn to read, write, and use computers in really interesting and innovative ways.
It's life changing, completely life changing.
Yeah.
It must be so rewarding to actually see that, because I know when you're at Microsoft, you kind of delivered loads of computers to these classrooms, right? And that the sort of feel good factor that goes with that must be just absolutely brilliant for sure.
Honestly, I think it's like I think partly it keeps me out of trouble as a human, and it also just gives me something bigger to believe in and something bigger to do than just my job or my career or you know going and having a drink with my friends. It is something that is hopefully changing the world and people's lives along with it.
Purpose. Yeah, it gives you purpose, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm very thankful that I work in a company and with a team that understands that you have your career and you have your purpose, and you shouldn't have to choose between your career, your family, and your purpose. You can have all of those things, together at once, and still excel in your career and still continue to advance without having to trade things off.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a good company. I mean, I was talking about them the other day. I think they're probably the oldest tech company that's alive. I think all the others are like less than 20 years, aren't they?
Yeah, so we're talking about IBM for those of
Yeah.
you who are following along. I just joined IBM the 2nd of January. So I think as in, any job, it takes some time to figure out, well, gosh, what the heck is my job and what am
Yeah.
I supposed to be doing? And how do I not just, follow what is on my job description, but what more can I do to not just make my mark, but also go beyond what my, leadership team might think success looks like, but create our own paths. And
Right.
that's something I'm pretty, excited about in my new role.
Yeah. So what have you been talking about then? Have you been to the UN?
Yeah, yeah. So
What have you been
last week,
talking about something?
yeah, so last week was a pretty whirlwind week for me. I was fortunate enough to attend a blockchain summit that IBM's blockchain team and our IBM Ventures team put on. And what I really loved about that program is they selected a couple handfuls, I think it was like 10 or 12, something like that, startups that are in the blockchain world. So imagine choosing, still, startups, but startups that have paying customers. They have, active blockchain solutions in the market, whether that's, fashion or sports or advertising, really doing interesting things that actually have blockchain applications. But what I loved most about the program was seeing them taking these startups and thinking about what do those startups actually need in terms of acceleration, but not just selling IBM products or thinking about how do we get them onto our platform. I mean, naturally, that's something as an employee of whatever company you work, at or with, whether that's AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google or IBM, getting them into your ecosystem. But it wasn't so much a sales play. It was more about how do we come together? How do we do true thought leadership versus how do we sell to you? And I think the impact of that was seeing these startups really, recognizing IBM as a thought leader and wanting to partner versus it being shoved down your throat.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? With a lot of companies, they just push you to do all sorts of things. It's and a lot of people as well are like that, aren't they? But no, I mean, I think blockchain certainly has the power to transform a lot of the world. I mean, if you introduce that into like the payment gateways and the payment solutions, and then it's all linked to innovation, isn't it? I mean, if you can help people to become included, have digital inclusion, understand how things work, then they can partner themselves with coders, they can create companies, and then they can actually use blockchain to get paid, and then and it's going to improve the whole world, so that in essence everyone will have a stake and they will get paid. I mean, that's my ideal vision, but the reality of that is at the moment very different, purely because the ethics of business in general are let's make money. That's what a business is for, right?
Well, I would disagree a little bit, to be honest.
Really?
I think, I would. And I take, Larry Fink's most recent letter to CEOs and shareholders of saying that, businesses are not just there to make money. They require, a social impact and a social cause. And it is good business. It's not just about how do you turn a profit, how do you retain your people. I think nowadays, so many employees are not just ready to support a profit generating engine. They want to also make the world a better place and feel that there's purpose involved along with making money. I mean, we all come to work to make sure that we can pay our bills and do all of that, but we also want to feel good about it and feel like we're making a difference with something, whether it's our own cause that we believe in or something bigger than that.
Right. So is that the sort of recent change in corporate social responsibility purely due to the fact that actually people are becoming wise to the fact that that's what a business should really be? So they've had to change and actually include that in their policies. Really, let's be real about it.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of academic research that came, well before many companies, saw this. Or, I think if you think about Larry Fink from BlackRock, just making this announcement, the first letter to shareholders or CEOs, I can't remember what the letter was called, was last year, and then he did the second one this year. So I think it's a relatively new thing, seeing a large asset management company like BlackRock, which has trillions of dollars, under management, coming and taking this stance. But for those of us who, got MBAs years ago, I remember, reading about conscious capitalism, and it wasn't something that I really saw part of my everyday until the last, few years. It started when I joined Microsoft, frankly, and I'm glad that it's still carried with me now that I'm with IBM.
Right. It's certainly an interesting place. I mean, I think looking at the sort of the picture of what's actually going on with, poverty and people are hungry and this kind of stuff. I think the problem that we face is actually making sure people don't just use AI just to replace workers, just to fuel shareholder value, right? And then we lose the economy altogether. I mean, that's the danger of computers, right? And using technology to the extremes of what machine learning can do, isn't it?
Well, and I think that's why you see, large companies like IBM, Microsoft, and others, coming up with, AI training, or coming up with white papers or perspectives on, bias in AI, and, how do we make sure that we understand our unconscious bias, and how does that come into play as we're thinking about the role that, either machine learning or artificial intelligence or, whatever, comes into play. I think one of the things that you mentioned in the very beginning, and I kind of went off onto an, blockchain summit tangent, was what was I doing at the UN this week or last week, and it was a really great roundtable. It was standing room only, so we filled up all the seats, which I was really excited about. The ambassador, so her excellency from Montenegro, spoke, and she, kicked off our event. It was really exciting to hear, someone who's got their PhD in telecommunications, someone who was a telecommunications regulator and is now the ambassador to the UN from Montenegro, kick off and really talk about, first off, what does digital inclusion mean to her and why is it important in her country and in her role. We had a couple of individuals from Microsoft, so Lydia Karoon, who's part of Microsoft Airband Initiative, which is a team that goes out and gets people connected to affordable energy and internet access. And then we had Donna Sucker, who heads up the Windows Insider team. She's just an amazing entrepreneur.
Oh yeah,
individual.
You've introduced me to her. I'm speaking to her and her associate. I think it's
Jeremiah.
Yeah, I think it's this week actually. Yeah. I'm speaking to them in a couple of days, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
They were part of it. We had a woman from UNESCO, a gentleman from UNICEF. We had a woman named Perry, who's responsible for a really amazing nonprofit called Stop Cyberbullying. She brought two of her teen angels. So we had two teenagers, one 14 and one 17, talking about internet inclusion and what it means for them and why it's important.
Wow.
I kicked off by talking about a personal story of why digital inclusion is important to me. So for me, me and my children are victims of parental kidnapping. My children are safe. They're healthy. They're adjusted little humans. They're 17, 14, and 12. They live in North Africa. And for me, being a mother, it means internet access, and it means being able to talk and chat and have access to my kids from afar. And I know that seems a little bit foreign for people who have traditional lives with their children or with their parents. But for me, digital inclusion means my kids being able to access the internet, them being able to use the internet in a meaningful way, and me being able to reach them. And it got me to a point of thinking about, well, this is what it means to me. What does it mean to other people from around the world? And how can I help make sure that my kids are not the only ones who are empowered by technology, but how can I take the lives and the dreams of other kids or other people from around the world and empower them with the access, skills, and utilization of technology that helps them thrive in their own communities. We talked a lot about digital skills. We talked a lot about just really, kind of raw emotion, when it comes to cyberbullying. But for me, I don't know, gave me an opportunity to share my personal story, but also some recommendations that I have for the UN.
That's fantastic. So what sort of skills are we actually talking about from the ground up, like from the basic people like me? I'm quite basic, right?
I wouldn't say you're quite.
No, I am. I don't. All right. I might type fast, but I don't code. Yeah. I can use programs, right? And I'm kind of, in harmony, right? Let's say I'm in harmony with what's going on. Thankfully, I've got a buddy who's he's like been hosting loads of websites for like 20 plus years. He's got one of the oldest hosting businesses in Europe. Yeah. So he manages all my data. Like, he built me my machine, and like, he's like, right, you need this program, you need that program, you need this processor. And so he built it all. And like, I've got like backups for this and that. And, like it's on another level to me. I don't even know how to run a backup. Yeah. Seriously, if my backup does not run, I'm not joking. If my backup does not run, yeah, I look at the backup program. I look at it every day, and I'm still, for 5 days, I've still been trying to work out how on earth to run a backup. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a fallacy. I think it's a fallacy to think like everybody's going to be an engineer or everybody's going to learn to code, because not everybody even cares about learning to code, and
Right.
not everybody is equipped to this with the skills, to be able to learn to code. But I see it as a wheel. I see it as a wheel of competencies. There are three models that I personally like. There's DigCom, that's from Europe. That one I think is really interesting, and they've got like, I don't know, 7, 10 different competencies. And then there is a really interesting model outside of from Denmark. I can't remember the name of the model, but it's essentially a framework as well. And then there's one from the DQ Institute. Those are my three favorites. There are
Right.
tons of other ones out there. Those are my three favorites. And I would see it as there are basic skills such as turning on your device, turning off your device, being able to collaborate with others online, being able to see through media literacy or see through fake news, know what to share, what not to share,
Okay.
security, privacy, and also see it as like a almost like a lever that you move from more advanced skills to more basic skills. And again, not everybody's going to be an engineer, and so you've got like security, for example. How do I keep myself safe by setting up strong passwords, and how do I make sure I'm not giving out my passwords to others,
Yeah.
all the way through to someone who might be a true infosec or info security or GDPR expert. So again, I'd see it as a wheel from like basic stuff such as, do I
Yeah.
know how to turn on my computer? Do I know how to set up a safe password and not share it with the world? All the way through to computational thinking and problem solving, such as actually creating websites or actually creating
Okay.
mobile applications. And again, not everybody's going to create mobile applications, but I think that people should be exposed to computer science. And I think they should see it as a language, just like, French is a language or Spanish is a language.
Mhm.
We should see, computer science as a language and not something different than that.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, my dad, he's 80, 85, yeah?
Yeah, your
86.
dad, yeah, it may not make sense to teach your dad to code.
Oh, no. My dad doesn't want to code, yeah? He
Oh,
just
my dad
wants
doesn't
to.
want to code either.
No, no, no. But like, I mean, my mum called me last night. She's 76, yeah? 70, yeah, 76. She said, "Oh, Nathaniel, I can't manage to send you an email." I'm like, "But mum, like, what are you talking about?" And
Yeah.
she's like, "Well, I don't know how." And she forgot because she was
Mhm.
tired. She's actually forgotten, but she's been sending me emails every day, and
Yeah.
it's because Apple updated their email software, I think, and she's
Mhm.
updated the app, right? And on her iPad, and it's confused her, but so she can't find my name in there and send me an email, right?
Ah, okay.
So I'm like, oh no, is she like losing her mind or something? But she's
Yeah.
not. She just doesn't. But it's like my dad, he really wants to learn, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think he should go to Apple and they can teach him what's the best thing? Because he's an Apple guy, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a Mac. He needs to get a phone. He needs to
Yeah.
get a new iPhone.
I think there are a few different avenues that let's say seniors. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
elderly for now. And I know this is something that the ITU, so the IT branch of the UN, is really interested in. And I was
Okay.
just at the UN last week, and they were mentioning how they are kicking off a project to really look at the digital inclusion of seniors and how do we make sure that the older generation is equipped with the competencies and skills and places to go. Like, where do you go? Whether you're a Microsoft user, a Google user, or Apple user, or whatever you are, I think there are some really interesting avenues in person for someone who really needs someone in person to tell them versus finding a tutorial online. Some of us, it might make sense for us to just Google or Bing, whatever
Yeah.
we're looking for, and find a video and follow
Bing.
along. Some people, yeah, it's
Bing.
there.
Bing. Who uses Bing?
I came from Microsoft, so I don't want to hurt
I'm
Satya.
kidding.
I don't want to hurt
I
Satya's
use a
feelings.
Microsoft machine, yeah, but I even forgot about Bing. And
Yeah.
I just did my SEO on my website and added it to Bing like 2 months ago, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm getting some traffic from Bing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's one way for some people who feel more comfortable online.
Okay.
For others, it might be going to if you're in the US, going to Best Buy's Best Buy or going to, Apple. I know for me, sometimes when I can't figure something out because I've got an iPhone, I'll go to the Apple store and say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do, or making an appointment for someone with someone and going there. I think that's another opportunity. I think there's also the opportunity, if you're a Microsoft user, going to the Microsoft store and just telling them what you've got going on. I also think that there's a lot of power in, working with people who are in university and finding, and I know sometimes that might be a little bit hard to find, somebody who's studying computer science or somebody who's, more technical than you. But a lot of times when I need something done and I can't figure it out on my own, I'll ask a friend, I'll sometimes go onto Facebook and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Or, I know a lot of the elderly are on Facebook now, and using it in a way to keep up with their kids or their grandkids or whatever.
See, thing is, my dad, he's fully aware, of what these platforms do to people. Yeah, he's been watching the behaviors. Okay, so he's got a lady friend. He's goes to stay with every year or something, every 6 months, and he basically has watched whilst her and her kids have been totally consumed with their screens at the dinner table.
Aren't we all?
But not at the dinner table. We're not. No, I consider that quite rude, actually. If I'm with my dad, I will make a point of putting my phone away. There's no way I'm going to sit there on my telephone and talk to my dad whilst I'm on my telephone. I consider that really bad manners.
For me, it depends on what's going on.
Of course.
There may be some times where, like, I've got a really important work deliverable.
And,
I have to stay close to my phone because, like, people need me and are counting on me. And for me to say I'm chilling at dinner, I'm having a glass of wine, or I'm out, it might not fly. I mean, now if you're, and I'm someone who remains very, very connected all the time, and I'm personally trying to get better about my screen time. And it's a struggle because a lot of, I work in tech. I'm not always home. Like now, for example, I'm in Barcelona. My boss is in California, and for me, if she needs something from me, I want her to be able to reach me, whether I'm sitting here having a glass of wine at Soho House, or I'm anywhere else. She needs to be able to reach me if she needs something.
I've interviewed someone called Mike Tobin, OBE, like 3 times on my show. He's a lovely chap. I went to meet him in London and stuff, and he's like, look, I have to put my phone on the table here because he's the executive chair for 15 businesses. So
like you don't have time off. You don't have the joy of.
He's like, if something goes wrong with my businesses, I need to fix it. Otherwise, I'm going to switch my phone off. I'm going to put it in my bag, and then I'm going to be thinking about what could be happening.
That's exactly right.
But whilst it's on the table, I'm not worried yet. But I'm raising a good point here. We're actually talking about an elderly lady, who's having conversations with people that are not there. We're talking about her grandchildren having a conversation with people who are not in the room. Okay. And I consider that particularly rude. So what my dad has done is that he's actually observed this behavior, and he said, right, I want to just use my new phone, because he's going to get an iPhone, for WhatsApp, because he's got 3 daughters in the States, email, perhaps, looking at the browser, so looking at websites for information, text and phone calls, right? And that's what he wants to use.
Then why is he getting an iPhone? Why doesn't he just get like a feature phone? What's the point of him getting an iPhone if that's all he wants to use it for?
Well, because he feels secure with Apple, because it goes with his
because he knows,
you see, he knows.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so and it's easier for seniors to use Apple, apparently, But the point I'm trying to make is that we have to be very careful that we're not just digitally included to the point of digital inclusion.
No, you're right. And this is why I talk again about that wheel of competence. So if you think about the DQ Institute's model, one of the competencies included in that model is screen time. What is an appropriate amount of screen time? That's one thing. Second thing is being able to really manage yourself online. And I think that this is where many models, and this is partly one of the reasons why I started looking at digital inclusion, because I saw so many different, definitions of it. And I see there's a lot of programs out there that, go out and, teach kids to code or teach people to code. And they miss all of the other building blocks of what it means to be online, whether that's screen time, whether that's emotional intelligence, behavior, being able to decipher whether news is real or not, whether you should share that or not.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than just having, skills, if you will, to be able to make stuff. It's the emotional stuff that goes along with that and how that affects your health and your well-being.
Yeah, because it does. I mean, it does. It's the endorphins that we feel from when we receive messages are, a small percentage of a hug, aren't they? I mean, it's like a digital.
I guess it depends on who's sending it to and what they're sending. I mean, when you send me a message,
what they're saying. Yeah.
When you send me a message, it's a big hug.
Likewise. Classic. So digital inclusion, right? It involves managing. So first of all, it's like, okay, let's sum it up in really simple layman's terms. Yeah.
Access, skills, and utilization to drive outcomes. So moving from unconnected to connected to thriving.
Okay. So I was looking at it slightly differently. I'm sort of thinking of, first of all, integrating it within your life for what you want it, for what you want it to do.
So outcomes.
Yeah.
Or thriving.
Right. It's all about purpose, isn't it? It's like what do you want to achieve, and then you.
And sometimes you don't know what you want to achieve.
No.
Sometimes, unless you have the skills and the, like we don't know what we don't know. Sometimes you don't, especially for someone who's been unconnected, never seen a computer, never worked on a computer before. Like you don't know what the hell you can do with it unless somebody empowers you or teaches you in, in an ethical and, in an ethical fashion that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it is very risky because you can waste time, you can be stressed, you can get bullied, there are all sorts of negative
or even exploited. I mean, if you
look at
what's happening with street kids in many parts of the world, there's a significant amount of exploitation and trafficking and all kinds of things that are going on, thanks for or unthanks to the internet and access to technology.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I was talking about that earlier with a GDPR expert, like a security expert. We were talking about the safety of children online, actually, and that is a huge thing. It's absolutely massive, and I think that blockchain actually has the capabilities. We have the capabilities to create solutions for this. I mean, I think gone are the days of, oh, we're not responsible what goes on our platform. I'm sorry, there needs to be responsibility.
No time for that.
Yeah.
No time for that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, where we've got some companies such as Facebook that's looking at, how do they monetize upon, tracking where you are when you're not even using the platform. And, the latest, privacy manifesto, doesn't even mention anything about, tracking you when you're outside of their platform, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is a really interesting concern. It's great to encrypt your data, but what are you tracking? And how are you tracking it? And what are you gaining access to about me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm one to talk because I'm definitely an overshare, and I check in and I show where I'm traveling,
right.
And I talk about what I'm doing. I post photos and I talk about my life, so sometimes I feel like, I know what's happening with my data, but
yeah, I know what you mean, but what
concerns me is people who don't know what's happening with their data and who wouldn't agree with what's happening with their data. And, they have no idea.
Yeah,
no
you nailed it. And
if they knew, maybe they wouldn't be agreeing to the provisions. Because at the end of the day, nothing's free. People think that Facebook is free. It's not free. It's all about data and tracking.
Yeah, but there's a new network coming out called How Do, and it's a blockchain powered network, and you actually are in control of all the data, and you get paid 50% of the ad revenue that goes through your account, which is quite interesting. I find that quite interesting.
That's really interesting. I met with someone who started up another platform recently, and the name of the platform is escaping me, and I don't think it was the same platform, but I think that there are really great, devs and entrepreneurs out there thinking about, how can we create something similar yet different that allows people to, gain revenue, to be in charge of their own data.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I look at it is, when you create a problem, you create a solution. Yeah, that's how I look at it, right? It's a law, right? When there's a problem created, there is a solution created at the same time. You might not know what it is yet, but actually, so I believe that there are many, many solutions for all of these problems. And I think dipping into digital inclusion will create a whole new load of innovations,
and not just from Silicon Valley, not just from Seattle, not just
very
from
true,
London, or the hubs that many people think about as technology hubs, but I think there's so much innovation happening on the African continent, whether that's happening in Nigeria or Kenya or North Africa or South Africa. But I've got some devs in my community. I've got one individual who's in a refugee camp living in Malawi. I've got, a school in Cameroon, and they're just doing amazing things, and also teaching others. I think, or, take that to Colombia, take that to, Latin America. There are so many different hubs of innovation happening. I think there are interesting things that we're going to see coming from Pakistan, for example, from Vietnam, from countries that have not necessarily been on the radar for individuals who might be so focused on innovation happening in Silicon Valley or Seattle. It's not just about what's happening on the West Coast of America. I know that right now, if you think about what content looks like, and it's swaying more toward English. I'd love to see scenarios where we have locally generated content in local languages, locally generated apps and services that are applicable in local communities. So not just about some entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, bringing something to the world, but what are local entrepreneurs doing once they get connected, and having the skills that they require to truly be technology entrepreneurs that transform not just their communities but the world.
That's very interesting. I mean, I think with the capabilities of Translate now, like 200 plus languages, Microsoft, what's it called? I forget the platform. Then there's Google, isn't there? There are a number of platforms that can just translate chatbots into 200 plus languages. I mean, it's not that amazing. It's not.
But I don't think it's just about translating into local languages. I'm talking about locally generated content from a local person in their own language, because I think when it's, I love machine learning, I love artificial intelligence, and I think that there are great apps that are out there that will give you the basic understanding of what someone is saying or what something is saying, but it's not perfect. And it does require a human touch. And those machine learning applications or AIs that help you with translation are never going to be perfect to catch those little nuances that are applicable from a cultural perspective. So it'll get you a percentage of the way there.
But then that opens up opportunities itself for translators who are translating that into different news stories globally. I mean, I think there's opportunity everywhere, really. It's quite exciting, actually, if you think about it. Everything happens, always opportunity, especially in Barcelona. I love Barcelona.
Yeah, right.
It's really cool. It's really cool. Well, it's been a joy and very interesting conversation. Really appreciate it. And I am sure that we will speak soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. I hope it was both insightful and empowering, and I'm going to get back to my wine.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to my editing. I've still got a load of work to do.
Thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe, and wherever you prefer, share with your friends. And if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen.